Okay, I've used the Artisan plugin and demonstrated on several occasions, basically just for doing kind of free form manipulation of a mesh, kind of abstract stuff, but I've really never used it or demonstrated it, try and work out kind of a quick grading plan just using an actual site plan and terrain model in SketchUp. So this is just a little demonstration to show you how that works. We'll see how long it takes, but I'm going to go through it. This is all in real time, so I'm figuring this out. One thing I'm not going to go over in this video is if I zoom out here, you can see in terms of setting this up to do this grading using the Artisan plugin. I basically exported, W-blocked out the files from AutoCAD, created the flat work. I had the contours, which I've deleted out of this to create the terrain model. And then I also exported PDF out in Photoshop as multiple layers and applied all these textures. So this is just a JPEG image of the site plan rendered in Photoshop quickly, just quickly filled in, and then placed on a flat surface so I could turn it into a projected texture in SketchUp. And that's what I've applied to this. So I'm going to get these out of here for right now and just zoom to there. So that was kind of the process. I used the projected texture, applied it to the terrain model. Now I did also use one other step and one other plugin. If you use SketchUp a lot, you know that when it creates terrain models, they have a lot of triangulation. And so this terrain model is a second version of that. That's why you see a little of the artifacts at the edges here using the Chuck Valley Instant Terrain plugin. So I created the terrain just using the Terrain from Contours tool in SketchUp and then applied that plugin to it. So now I've got this nice mesh, and this is a 5-foot square mesh that I applied to it. And so basically then I brought in the buildings, I modeled those, and they're each created as a separate block, so I can move those up and down. And I've already kind of placed them. I think they have 2 feet between the upper unit and the lower unit on each side. And I kind of just drop them into place and then move them up and down to eyeball that. But you can also just take a pencil line and come in here and kind of snap back to there and start seeing what the elevation is. And again, this isn't perfectly accurate. I'm not setting these finished floors at a specific elevation. I'm just doing this to kind of work out a rough grading plan very quickly to kind of understand what's going on with this site. Okay, so I put those in place. I've got that ready to go, and then I'm going to use the Artisan plugin. Now, one of the things you want to do before you start sculpting is to go to the settings and make sure the soft fall off mode is set to smooth. I have the planar lock off. And the biggest thing is to make sure you have auto smooth sculpt turned on. That just means that as you sculpt with the tool, it will kind of smooth itself out, and it just makes a little better modeling experience that way. And I also go in and turn on hidden geometry. It's not necessary, but it does allow you to see the grid, and it helps visualize the smoothness of the terrain. So I'm going to pick the Artisan tool, and you can adjust the size with the left and the right arrows, and you can adjust the direction with the up and down arrow. So one of the other key things is you don't want to have this doing too extreme a grading at one time, because if it does, it can really change the elevations very quickly, and you want to kind of do this in a more refined way. The other thing I found that is helpful is I tend to start next to the buildings. So in this case, maybe I'll go a little bigger, and I'm just clicking and dragging with the mouse and bringing these elevations up. And you can see as I get done, it kind of auto smooths it off. So I'm going to move my way down along the building. And if you get a little too much like that, for example, in this corner, it's really hard to make that adjustment without affecting everything else. So I'm just using the left arrow. I'm going to bring that in here a little closer, and I'm just going to drag it up into the corner. And if I want to smooth this back down, I can just, sometimes I also find just clicking in a single spot can also just make that quick adjustment. So again, I'm starting at the building just to kind of get the basic elevation set. Get in here next to this, bring this up a little bit. Again, I'm not really going to worry. I can't get completely under the building there, but you can click and drag under there a little bit if you want to raise this up. And I'm not going to worry about the fact that, yeah, water's draining back in the building, but I can fix that later on. So, oops, sorry, through the building there. So again, I want to bring this down a little bit out here. So I'm just going to start by getting that kind of set up to my grade, and then I can come through here and work with this area here. Again, the stronger, the higher the arrow is, the bigger it is. Then when I get out here, I can widen this back up again because I have a lot larger area, and it's just going to go a lot quicker. It's going to come in here and gradually bring that up. So again, maybe that was a little too much. Looks a little better. Again, you can always adjust it down to do this kind of subtle and adjust your arrows in. So I'm kind of painting back and forth. And you can see it looks like I'm getting a little high there. So I'll just move my arrow back down and just drop it down through there. That looks a little bit better. Again, the more subtle it is, the better it is. Working my way out across there. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. And you can use, because I've got this image mapped on here, and this is what's kind of interesting about it. If you try to do this with by draping the geometry on the roads or on the terrain model, what you end up with is the geometry will start to distort as you start modeling or molding the landform, and then it doesn't really work very well because you can't really see what you're doing. So I found this method of actually putting on the an image of it, which just bends and flows with the landform itself. Now you can see I'm starting to get this. I don't have it completely smoothed off here, but I'm going to pull that down. And at some point, when you start getting these really subtle variations that you want to work with, you can actually switch to the smooth mode, and this will try and kind of blend. And you can see, if you look carefully where the cursor is moving, you can see it's kind of changing the grid there. It's really kind of hard to see, but it goes through. You can see it against the building a little bit better, and it's kind of evening that out so the geometry is less distorted, and it's kind of blending these high points and low points through there. So that's another way you can go in there. And so you can see my parking lot over here is still kind of falling off the edge, and what I'd really rather have is that kind of sitting up a bit. So I'm going to switch to sculpt mode, come out here, make my zone a little smaller. So now you can see that's kind of pulling that edge of the parking lot up, kicking that back, and come out here to blend it back in so it doesn't drop off too quick. Okay, so now you can see maybe that's a little high there, but you can basically see what's going on if I switch to smooth. Or maybe I go back to sculpt, drop that, just click, drop that down a little bit. Okay, starting to look a little bit better. And this is where, again, I'd go back up now, switch to smooth. And just kind of blending those off a little bit, getting rid of the difference between the high points and the low points. You can see it in the foreground a little bit better. It just kind of evens things out a little bit. Okay, so I've got that starting to work, so I'm going to switch back over to this side, go back to sculpt. Again, I start over near the building here, kind of work into the corners there. And once I kind of get that height there, and you can see it's coming out a little too big, so I'm going to smooth this off. And if I go down to the lower areas, it's kind of going to bring that upper area down to the lower areas a little bit more. Or I can just go down to my sculpt, push that down. I don't want that too high in there. There we go. That's starting to look a little bit better. You can see the landform falling off into the driveway. So again, as I get down toward the bottom of the parking lot, I need to bring the parking lot itself up. And again, gonna have like a high point in the center there. When I use the smooth function, I tend to put the influence up a lot higher because it'll blend it together a little bit more. So, but then if you're going to switch back to sculpt mode, okay, so I'm getting that high point, pulling this up in here a little bit. Continue that high area there, drain these parking areas back down to the roadway. So I'm going to bring this edge up a little bit. Again, sometimes you have to work your way back out to move the adjacent areas up, otherwise you'll get that kind of fall off right at the edge there. Switch to smooth mode. I'll blend that back a little bit. And I'll come in and with this on these embankments too, kind of smooth that off a little bit. And if you get a spot like that that just looks a little high, again, bring this down, switch to sculpt, just kind of refine that. So we're not going to get into the adjacent trees over there. This actually still looks a little high, so I'm going to pull that back down, just click and drag, kind of sweep across there. I want this side to come back up a bit. There we go. Again, I'm just going to keep working my way down in here through the turnaround area, trying to level that. Again, I don't really know what the slopes are per se, but I know this area has to come up quite a bit because it's dropping off over the edge of the hill there. Just making some visual judgments about that. And all the time trying to make sure that it looks like it's draining down away from the building. It starts getting too big or too high, and then it's not going to work. So I'm just pulling it up a little bit in there to get that gradient. And maybe back down again. All right, come back around here. So in order to get this up, I'm going to have to come out a little bit beyond the edge of that again, and maybe make my influence a little smaller so it's not going to go down into those trees. And because I have the image on there, I'm basically just looking at the image. When I get that perspective correct, when you see the lines kind of smoothing out a little bit, then you know. So now you can see I can come in here and just kind of level this off a little bit. I've got kind of a swale dropping across through there, but might want to pull that up a little bit. Switch to sculpt. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Again, the idea is that this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to give you a good idea. Looks like I maybe need to pull that up a little bit more so that's not falling off the side. Smooth that out a little bit more through there. that up a bit. So you can see a little bit of the auto smoothing happening there too. After I model that a little bit, then you see the contour shift a little bit. Again, just come in along this edge and just smooth that out a little bit, get rid of those kind of bends or sharp changes in elevation across there. Okay, let's go back to sculpt, move this in a little bit more. So you can see, got the area in the back here. Pull that up, and that grade up against there. This all area's a whole little low in here, so pull that up so it kind of meets that. Back down again, just to about where the so we can pull that up a little bit if we want. And smooth that off to kind of blend that along the side there. Blend this around. I've got a little bit of a swale running through the center there. It blends that out. Okay, so we have to bring this up a little bit to there, and then we're going to move that out a little bit farther so we have a level area for patios there. This unit's not going to have one, so we can come up a little farther. Go down a little bit, smooth that off. The low spot there. Pull that up along the building a bit so the water's not going into the building. Switch to smooth, blend that off a little bit. Okay, and smooth this off. Let's switch to sculpt mode. Get in here a little bit. Pull that up. There we go. And I don't have the retaining walls showing in here, so it's going to be a little tough to make that corner perfect, but you get the idea. Okay, you can see that's coming out there. And go back up, switch to smooth. Just going to smooth those areas off a little bit, make that slope a little more uniform. It's looking a little low in there, so let's pull that up. Okay, switch to smooth, smooth that off. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. I'm just going to do a little bit more. It's not particularly exciting to watch, so pull that up and let's smooth that off. So sometimes, just like working with clay or whatever, I sculpt it a little bit more, maybe I pull it up a little higher than it needs to be, and then I go in with the smooth tool, the smoothing function, and blend that in. So again, one of the things is great about this, if you're a second-year student watching this, this would be a pretty nice way to work out a rough grading plan for your design studio project. Because once you have the buildings and you map your site plan on there, you can go through here and do a grading plan and sculpt the landform to basically get it to do what you want it to on your project. And then the nice thing about it is, I'm going to stop there. I'll turn my hidden geometry back off. Now I'm going to triple click on this and select it and turn it into a group. And then once it's grouped, I can go to my contours plugin and type in a 1 foot contour interval and just let it crank through here. So up until this point, I've just been doing it visually, just looking at the landform like a piece of clay and molding it around. So again, I don't know exactly what the slopes are, but if you know what the existing slopes are on there, do a little site analysis before you begin. And you've got the edges of the buildings to kind of tell you if you're dropping 6 or 8 feet, whatever it might be, you can get a pretty good feel for how it's going to work. And then, as I said, once it's done, you can apply the contours, and in a second here, you'll see the 1 foot contours. And because I brought this in with the elevations set from AutoCAD, it's already at, those contours are at even elevations. So as you'll see here, the contours actually do line up pretty well. So there's my proposed contours. You can see I still need to do a little smoothing down here. But you can get the drainage, basic drainage pattern, and you can see clearly we've got some water running in the buildings, but these contours can be pulled across and brought in this way so the water runs out. But basically it shows this high point in the center, water draining both directions. Again, down here at this edge, I've got a couple options. I could decide, well, maybe I'll pull this building up a little higher, or these contours essentially bend around and hit into the building to create a little swale at this end here. Same with this. This could come in and turn around to create a swale through here, past the sidewalk. So this would indicate to me that, well, maybe I need to set these buildings a little higher because I really want positive drainage coming off of these all the way down. And right now, coming off of this, it's actually draining down to here, and I want that to come back up. So again, as a first quick solution, but you can see around here, the existing contours come in and hit pretty close to the proposed contours hit pretty close to the existing. You can actually see here they're running pretty much the same exact location. So you can see the grade being taken up along the building. As you slope down along the back, you can see the flatter areas where the patios would be. And you can even tell right here, I'm pretty darn close. If I connect here and here, I didn't grade into that tree. So you can see whether your contours are pushing too close to the existing vegetation and whether that would be an issue or not. Yeah, there's some little anomalies with the grids and everything on the side, but the fact is that you can actually do a pretty good grading job to get an idea. Maybe you decide, well, this is looking fairly flat through here, but maybe a little too steep at the intersection, so I'd rather push this up and have it a little steeper in here and a little flatter where I reach the intersection. So anyway, that's just a quick demo of how you can use the Artisan plugin to do some speed grading on your site and actually end up with some contours that you can modify, especially for a preliminary grading plan, so you can see how your design is actually going to fit onto the site in relationship to topo, and do it in a visual way just like you were modeling the site with clay.